Ticket to the other side. The last bus never reaches its stop. The digital clock at the station blinked 1:57 a.m., its neon red glow barely cutting through the thick mist that curled around the empty benches and cracked pavement. At this hour, the city was a hushed shadow of itself, alleys, darker silence deeper, and even time seemed to pause for breath. Min stood under the flickering street lamp at Benzile-Kijon, clutching his backpack and checking his phone for the 100th time. No signal, just the spinning circle of searching service and the time 1:58 a.m. He was late, or early, or maybe just lost in time. The streets were dead. Not a soul in sight except for a hunched old man asleep, or maybe unconscious on a bench near the far end of the lot. Min had only agreed to take this ungodly hour bus because the website said it was the last option to get to Travain before sunrise. A whisper of tires against gravel broke the silence. He turned. From the mist emerged a black bus. No lights, no engine sound, just there. It glided to a stop in front of him. Its doors opened with a slow hiss. No one got off. No driver visible. No logo on the side, no route number, just a faded sign that once held letters long worn away. Still, Min was desperate. And in the stillness, something about the bus pulled him forward. He stepped on. Inside, the air was colder than it had any right to be. A damp metallic scent clung to the ceiling like mold in a long-forgotten basement. The flickering ceiling lights gave off a dull yellow glow, not enough to illuminate the faces of the other passengers. Because there were passengers, 8 of them, all sitting perfectly still. No one looked up. No one moved. He hesitated. Was this a prank? Some weird sleepwalker cult? But then a voice echoed from nowhere, mechanical and distant, like from a broken intercom. Please find your seat. This is the last ride. The doors closed behind him. The lights outside vanished. With nowhere else to go, Min walked to the middle of the bus and slid into a seat beside a girl in a school uniform. She stared out the window unmoving. He tried not to look at her too long. There was something wrong about the way she sat. Too straight, too still. As the bus moved, it didn't feel like it was driving so much as floating. The engine made no sound, no bumps, no streetlights outside. Just endless black like they were drifting through space. Min's phone screen was still dead, no signal. The battery bar flickered unnaturally. He leaned slightly toward the girl beside him. "Excuse me," he whispered, "is this bus going to Travain?" No answer. She didn't even blink. He frowned and turned toward the aisle. Everyone on the bus sat the same way, rigid, silent, their eyes fixed forward or to the window, never meeting his gaze. And then he noticed something chilling. None of them were breathing. The bus took a sudden turn. Not a curve, an impossible sharp angle, as if the laws of physics bent to its will. Min's stomach dropped. He gripped the edge of the seat. Through the window, he saw nothing but fog and shapes half-formed buildings, upside-down trees, shadows of hands pressed against invisible glass, fading as the bus passed. He blinked. Gone. "What is this?" he muttered. That's when the girl beside him moved. She turned slowly, unnaturally slow, like her neck didn't want to cooperate. Her face pale as paper, lips slightly blue, and eyes lifeless. And yet she looked straight into Min's soul. "You shouldn't have gotten on," she said, voice flat, like a radio playing from far underwater. He recoiled. "What? You don't belong here. You're still warm. What are you talking about?" She looked ahead again. Her mouth stopped moving, but the whisper continued. "You still have breath. That's dangerous." Min stood up, heart pounding. "What is this place? Where is this bus going?" The other passengers didn't move. Not even a twitch. He stepped into the aisle, stumbling slightly as the bus veered again, turning into a street that no longer existed. Outside the window, Min saw something impossible. A city from another time, old, warped architecture, glowing signs in dead languages, flickering candles in windows where no humans lived. The whisper returned, louder now. Not just one voice. Dozens. You don't belong. You don't belong. He turned and ran toward the front of the bus. The driver's cabin was empty. No wheel. No controls. Just a cracked mirror. And in the reflection, he saw himself. But older. Eyes sunken, skin pale, mouth sewn shut. He turned around, nothing there. Sweat dripped from his forehead. His breath came short and fast. He banged on the glass of the cabin. Let me out, I'm not dead. Silence. Then the voice returned. All passengers must remain seated. You chose the ticket. I didn't buy a ticket, he shouted. The girl's voice behind him again. You waited at the stop. That was the price. He turned to look at her, but now she was standing in the aisle closer than she had any right to be. Her head tilted unnaturally to the side. You don't remember what happened to you? Min stared. What are you? A flash. His mind jolted. A memory brief, brutal. The crash. The rain, the intersection, headlights, tires screaming. He remembered hitting the ground. Then darkness. Then waking up. Here. No, he whispered. That's not real. I'm alive. I got on this bus to go home. The girl's eyes softened just slightly. You were given a choice. You lingered too long. Now the gate is confused. What gate? The one between breaths. She stepped backward into the shadows. If you still feel the cold, you may still choose, but not for long. Suddenly the bus shook violently. Outside, lightning cracked across a purple sky. The road below them split open, revealing nothing but black mist and echoes of screams. The passengers began to stir. Not move. Stir. Like puppets lifted by invisible strings. Their heads turned to Min in unison. He backed away. No. The whisper came again. Too late. Too late. You took the ride. Then Manavras, a blinding light outside. A beam of red across the aisle. A new stop. The bus screeched to a halt. The doors opened. Outside was not a station, not a city, not a place. It was a threshold, a space of shifting shapes, glowing symbols, and one figure standing in the fog. A woman. Old, gentle, holding something in her hand. A candle. She looked directly at Min and nodded. He knew her, his grandmother. She had passed 5 years ago. Her mouth moved, though no sound came. But he understood. Come now, or stay forever. Min's legs trembled. He didn't know if they'd let him walk. Behind him, the passengers stood now closer, forming a line blocking the rear. He turned to the open door, to the candle, to his last chance. He ran. The moment his feet touched the fog outside, everything shattered like glass hit by thunder. The world spun. The bus, the voices, the shadows, they dissolved into dust and ash. And then he awoke. Min gasped, eyes wide, lying in a hospital bed. Machines beeped. A nurse stood above him, startled by a sudden jolt. You're awake, you came back. He sat up, lungs heaving. Sweat soaked the sheets. What happened? You were in a crash, hit by a truck. You flatlined for 3 minutes. Then, your heart started again, just like that. Min turned his head slowly toward the window. Outside, the streetlights glowed yellow. A bus passed. Ordinary. Loud. Real. He closed his eyes. But he would never forget. Because in his hand, clenched tightly, was a small torn bus ticket. Faded. Cold. Stamped with the time. 2:07 a.m. No driver, no destination. The last bus never reaches its stop. True Ghost Stories series. Min didn't tell anyone about the bus. Not the doctors. Not his mother when she cried at his bedside. Not the young police officer who asked him gently what he remembered about the accident. Because the truth that he had boarded a ghostly black bus, met the dead, and seen his grandmother standing in a realm beyond death wasn't something he could explain. So he lied. I blacked out. I don't remember anything. They believed him, but he remembered everything. 1 week after the accident, Min was discharged from the hospital. His body had healed quickly, almost too quickly. The doctors called it a miracle. He returned to his small rental room near the university, but sleep was impossible. Every night when the clock ticked past 1:57 a.m., a cold wind blew through the gaps in his window, and he swore he could hear it. The hiss of bus doors, the creak of leather seats, the whisper, "You took the ride." He began avoiding sleep altogether. Then came the dreams, except they didn't feel like dreams. The first time he woke up inside the bus again, same flickering yellow lights, same cold air. But this time he was the only one aboard. No passengers, just the bus. Moving, destination sign blank. He walked to the front, heart pounding, and reached for the driver's seat. Still no wheel, still no pedals, just a cracked mirror. But something had changed. In the reflection, he saw not himself, but someone else. A boy, no older than 10, sitting in a window seat at the back, wearing an old school uniform, pale, silent. Min turned around to look. The seat was empty. When he looked back at the mirror, the boy was closer. His mouth moved. "You never got off." Min woke up screaming, soaked in sweat. The second time was worse. He was in a station. Empty, colorless, lit by a sickly blue glow from overhead lights. Signs on the walls were smeared and unreadable. Only one bench. And a bus. Same bus. Still no driver. But this time there was a man standing at the open door. Middle-aged, worn-faced, tired eyes. "Don't wait too long," the man said. "It comes back if you wait." Min tried to ask who he was, but the man only stepped inside the bus and vanished. The doors closed. The bus disappeared. And Min was alone in a place where time had stopped. He woke up again, gasping for air, throat dry like ash. That day, Min made a decision. He went back to the station. At 1:30 a.m., he stood at Ben Shele Ki Jon, exactly where he had boarded the ghost bus. This time, the city felt even more silent. He didn't know what he was expecting. Maybe to prove it had all been a hallucination. Maybe to face it head on. Maybe to go back and finish whatever had been left undone. He waited. 1:45, nothing. 1:55, the mist returned, curling between the benches like cautious fingers. 1:58, no sound. Then at exactly 2:00 a.m., the air shifted. He felt it before he saw it. That hush, that pressure, the way shadows bent slightly inward, like leaning towards something approaching. And then it emerged. The black bus. No headlights, no sound, just there, waiting. Min didn't move. His hands trembled, but the doors hissed open. This time someone was standing inside. A girl, no older than 18, eyes sunken, hair soaked like she had just come out of a river, her dress torn at the hem. She looked straight at Min. "Did you come back to drive?" He blinked. "What?" She stepped aside. "There's no driver." Min shook his head. I don't know how to." She didn't wait. She sat in the front row looking forward. He looked around. The street behind him was empty, the building silent. He stepped onto the bus. This time there were only 5 passengers. All looked recent. A young man in a motorbike jacket, an older woman in a hospital gown, a child clutching a plush toy, a businessman in a blood-stained shirt, and the girl. None of them moved. Min walked slowly to the front and stood before the empty driver's cabin. Still no wheel, still no seat. Just to the earth, Surin armors, just as the mirror. He looked. This time it showed him, but behind him stood shadows, countless ones. Some he recognized, some he didn't. They whispered in overlapping voices. Someone must guide the lost. Someone must choose. There must always be a driver. He backed away. "No, I'm not dead. I left this place. I went back." The girl's voice calmed behind him. "You left, but part of you didn't." He turned. "You mean my soul?" She nodded. It didn't finish crossing. "You have a choice, drive or vanish." Min looked at the mirror again. The bus had started moving. There was no road outside, only memory. They passed through blurry landscapes, his childhood school, an alley where he once cried alone, the bridge where he lost his father's photo, the old market his grandmother used to take him to. Time folded around them. Each stop they passed was not a place but a moment. The passengers still didn't move. Then suddenly, the businessman stood up. He walked to the door. The bus slowed. Outside was a dark office floor, flickering computer screens, his nameplate on the desk. Blood pooled at the carpet's edge. He looked back at Min and nodded. The doors opened. He stepped out. Gone. No scream. No sound. Just a breath of finality. Then the girl stood. She looked at Min. I drowned in the canal near Nguyen Thai Hoc Street. He swallowed. I remember. That was in the news 3 weeks ago. I never saw who pushed me, but I keep dreaming I'm sinking. The bus slowed. Outside water. A vast moonlit surface. She hesitated. I don't want to remember anymore. She stepped off. Gone. Min sat in the front row, frozen. Was this the truth? Was this what the bus really did? It took the dead to the memory of their death. Gave them one last moment to accept. The whisper returned. There must always be a driver. He stared at the empty cabin, at the mirror. And then the child stood. Min turned. The boy walked slowly down the aisle. He stopped beside Min, held out the plush toy. Min took it. I never got to say goodbye to my mom, the boy said softly. Min's voice cracked. I'm sorry. The boy smiled, tired. I think she already knows. The bus slowed. Outside was a small dark bedroom, a nightlight shaped like a moon. A woman curled on the floor crying. The boy vanished. The door never opened, but Min knew he was gone. Gone the right way. Now only one passenger remained. The woman in the hospital gown. Min turned toward her. She was trembling. I didn't want to go, she whispered. I was fighting. I wanted to live. He sat beside her. Then why are you here? She looked down. Because I lost and I never said goodbye. Min nodded. I think this bus, it's how you find peace. She looked at him. And what about you? What do you find? He looked out the window. The bus wasn't moving anymore, but the door wasn't open either. Outside was nothing, just endless shifting black. I don't know. He walked to the mirror. This time it showed a seat, a wheel, an old-fashioned lever. He understood now. It wasn't about being dead. It was about guiding. The bus was real, and it wasn't. But someone had to drive, to carry the memories, to hold the space. Min sat down, placed his hand on the lever. It moved with ease. The woman smiled, peaceful now. She vanished. The bus was empty, except for him. But ahead in the mirror, new shapes began to appear. New passengers, new souls. The journey was never over, only paused. He understood. He had gone too far to go back now. But if he had to stay, he would drive. She sat next to me, but vanished. The last bus never reaches its stop. True Ghost Stories series. The fog outside was endless, thick like smoke, but colder than ice. It curled around the windows of the bus as it glided silently through a place that had no streets, no sky, no time. Inside, Min sat behind the wheel, or what counted as one. The controls were symbolic more than functional, reacting not to force, but to will. He had driven the bus through memories and echoes, through the final thoughts of the dead. For 3 nights now, he had helped the silent passengers reach whatever lay beyond. He didn't know if it was heaven or just closure, but tonight felt different. The moment the bus emerged from the mist into another station, a station that had no name and no signs, he sensed it. Something was wrong. A single passenger stood waiting at the stop. A girl, barely 20. She wore a red hoodie and jeans, her black hair tied back in a ponytail. She looked perfectly alive. Normal. Too normal. She stepped onto the bus like she'd done it 100 times. No hesitation. She sat down halfway down the aisle window seat on the left. Min glanced back in the mirror. She didn't look around, didn't speak, just stared out the window, one hand in her hoodie pocket, the other resting on her lap. Another soul ready to move on, possibly, but something gnawed at Min's gut. He pulled the lever. The bus moved forward. They passed the same dreamlike zones, fragmented memories, glimpses of unfinished stories, layers of a life fractured by death. But this time, none of the images outside seemed to connect to her. No childhood playground, no family home, no familiar objects, no reactions. Min turned again. She was still staring out the window, expressionless. Still, too still. He stood up, walked slowly down the aisle, stopped beside her. Her eyes didn't move. "Hey," Min said softly. "You okay?" No answer. He sat down beside her. "I'm Min," he offered. Still nothing. He looked closer. Her lips were slightly parted, her breath shallow. Wait, she was breathing? He froze. None of the souls who'd ridden the bus ever breathed, ever blinked. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the mirror shard he had found weeks ago, the one from the original bus cabin. He tilted it toward her. No reflection, but she was breathing. He leaned back. "What are you?" he whispered. Suddenly, her head turned, snapping inhumanly fast to face him. Her eyes locked with his. Black. Not pupil black. Not dark brown. Black entirely, no sclera, no iris, just void. "You saw me," she whispered. Min swallowed hard. "What?" "You were the only one who saw me." He blinked. "Where?" She turned back to the window. Her voice, hollow but steady, continued. "I was on the sidewalk. I'd been walking home from my shift. It was late, past 1. It was raining. You were in the ambulance. Your eyes were open, but no one noticed me." Min's chest tightened. He remembered. The crash. His body on the ground. The medics shouting. The crowd. And just beyond the blur, a girl standing in the rain. He'd seen her. Only for a second. A red hoodie. "Wait," he said. "That was you." She nodded. I tried to wave, tried to speak, but no one could hear me. No one saw me except you. He was silent. Her voice grew softer. "I followed the ambulance. I didn't know why. I didn't feel dead, but no one could touch me. Doors didn't open. My voice made no sound, except when I passed you." Min's mouth was dry. "You followed me to the hospital, to the station, and now here." Min stood up slowly. "You're not dead, are you?" She didn't answer. He moved back toward the front of the bus, looked in the mirror. Still no reflection of her, just an empty seat. He slammed the lever. The bus slowed. The mist outside peeled away to reveal a street he recognized, Nguyen Trai Avenue. Late at night, just like the night of the accident, rain falling, neon signs reflected on wet asphalt. He pulled the lever harder. The bus stopped. The doors hissed open. He turned back to her. "Go. If you're still alive, this is your way out." She didn't move. "Why won't you go?" he asked. "I can't," she whispered. "I was alive, but then I wasn't. I think I got stuck." "Stuck where?" "Between..." She stood now slowly and turned toward him. "Between the moment I should have crossed and the moment someone saw me." Min's voice broke. "I'm not supposed to see anyone? I don't understand how this happened." "Neither do I. But I felt it. When your eyes met mine, I anchored. Something kept me from drifting." Min stepped closer. "So what happens now?" She walked toward the open door, looked outside. "I don't know where this leads. None of us do. But I'm scared." Min hesitated. "Then stay just for a while." She stepped back into the bus. The doors closed. But this time the bus didn't move. They sat in silence for minutes, maybe hours. The concept of time had long since stopped making sense in this realm. Finally, she spoke again. "My name's Vi." Min smiled faintly. "It's good to finally meet you." She looked down at her hands. "You've been driving this bus. How long?" "I don't know. I think time here is measured by decisions, not minutes." Vi tilted her head. You help them move on. I try. Some are ready, some are just lost. And what about you? He didn't answer. Later, maybe much later, the mist outside shifted again. This time it wasn't memory or dream. It was noise. Real noise. Sirens. Footsteps. A crowd. Flashing lights. And there, parked quietly at the corner of a road in the real world, was the black bus. But now, people could see it. A police officer stood by the front shouting into a radio. A group of bystanders had gathered, peering in. They couldn't see Min or Vi, of course, but they saw the bus. That had never happened before. Min stood. Something's changed. Vi looked out wide-eyed. I think I remember now. What Rainy? The night you crashed. I saw the bus. Min froze. What did you say? Vi turned to him. I saw the bus before you did. It passed through the intersection seconds before the crash. But it wasn't real. It was like a shadow. I thought I imagined it, but I followed it. Min's mind raced. So, you saw the bus while alive? Yeah. Then maybe that's why you got pulled in. Vi nodded slowly. Maybe I saw too much. They turned back to the window. The bus was still visible. The crowd growing. Then one child pointed. Directly at Vi's seat. Look, there's someone inside. A ripple of cold went through Min's spine. Another child joined in. There's a girl in red. Min and Vi turned to each other. Min whispered, they can see you. Vi looked like she might cry. They see me? Maggie nodded. Then maybe I'm not between anymore. She stood. I think it's time. Min stepped to the side. The doors opened. This time, instead of stepping out onto nothing, Vi stepped directly into the scene. She looked back at Min, eyes shining. Thank you for not forgetting me. He smiled. I didn't save you. You just weren't ready to leave. Maybe none of us are. Then she stepped off and was gone. The moment she disappeared into the mist, the bus groaned mechanically, spiritually, as though it had felt her exit in its very core. The windows fogged. The interior lights dimmed. Min returned to the front, sat down. But before he could pull the lever, a small paper slipped out from under the console. A bus ticket, faded red, stamped round trip, one passenger, and under it her name, Bave Bure. Min stared at it for a long time, then tucked it into his jacket. Outside, the mist shifted again. A new stop ahead, a new passenger waiting, and he drove on. The bus route was erased years ago. The last bus never reaches its stop. True Ghost Stories series. The mist shifted again. Min tightened his grip on the lever as the bus rolled forward into another unknown. Every time the bus moved, the world outside rearranged itself into some space that didn't exist in the way reality was supposed to. Memory, death, regret, they all shaped the road now. But tonight the silence was heavier than usual. Not peaceful, oppressive, as if the route itself was resisting. The windows darkened. The seats creaked softly, even though no one else had boarded yet. Something was coming. And it had been waiting a long time. The bus slowed to a stop, though Min hadn't pulled the lever. It happened on its own. The doors opened, creaking slightly louder than usual. Outside was not fog, not night, but daylight. Warm, golden sunlight spilled across cracked pavement. The air smelled of dry leaves, old concrete, and something older. A smell that reminded Min of forgotten places. The stop looked like a normal bus shelter, but the signs were torn off, rusted away. The glass panels were smashed and weeds had burst through the sidewalk. And sitting on the bench was a man in his 70s wearing a faded gray jacket and holding a briefcase on his lap. He didn't look up when the bus arrived, didn't react, until Min called out instinctively, though his voice shouldn't have been able to cross the boundary. You waiting for someone? The old man lifted his head. His face was deeply lined, his hair thin and white. His eyes were empty but not blind like they had seen too much. The number 4, he replied. I always catch the number 4 at this stop. Min frowned. There is no number 4 anymore. The man looked at him. Oh, I know. It was shut down in '98. But the schedule was never taken down, you see. The city forgot this stop, but I didn't. He stood up and walked slowly toward the open door of the bus. Min felt something twist in the air as he stepped on board. A heaviness. The weight of years. The old man took a seat in the second row, still clutching the briefcase. He stared straight ahead. Didn't blink, didn't breathe. He was like the others, but different. Min sat back in the front. The bus began to move again. The outside world blurred, not into fog, but into old film reel images. Sepia-toned cityscapes. Buildings that no longer stood. Tram lines replaced by roads. Billboards advertising products that had vanished from stores decades ago. Time folded backward. Can I ask your name, Min called? The old man didn't turn his head. Kwang? I used to work downtown. Took this bus every morning. Min hesitated. You said the number 4 route closed in 1998. Kwang nodded. It was after the fire. The one that took the building on my office. Min glanced in the mirror. Kwang's reflection was missing. Only the seat showed. You died there. It wasn't a question. Yes, the old man said simply. And you've been waiting since then. Not exactly. Kwang's voice was calm. I've boarded other buses, but none of them took me where I needed to go. I always ended up back at the same stop. Min felt a shiver. How long were you at that station? I don't know. Sometimes it's Tuesday. Sometimes it's still 99. Other times I see buildings that were demolished. But the bench is always there, and I'm always waiting. Min turned the lever slightly. The bus took a curve into an alley that no longer existed between 2 newspaper stands that had once sold headlines from decades past. What are you carrying? Min asked, nodding toward the briefcase. Kwang clutched it tighter. Regret. Min blinked. What kind? Kwang's voice lowered. My son worked in the same building. I asked him to cover my meeting that day. I was tired. I said I'd make it up to him. Min's stomach sank. He went instead. Kwang nodded. The fire started on the 6th floor. The sprinklers failed. The exit collapsed. I never got to say goodbye. Outside the window, Min saw an office tower engulfed in flame. A child's drawing stuck on a cubicle wall, blackening in the smoke. 2 shadows pounding on a locked stairwell door. And then ash. Just ash. The bus lurched. Min stumbled forward. The interior lights flickered. The floor shook briefly like a tremor in the spirit world. Outside, the city was collapsing. Not in flames, but into non-existence. As if the world beyond the windows had decided to erase itself, building by building. Kwang remained still. The route's gone, Min whispered. There's no place left to take you. I know. Min stood. Then why did you come aboard? Kwang turned toward him for the first time. His eyes clouded with smoke and sorrow locked with Min's. Because someone finally drove the bus again. Min felt his breath catch. You were waiting for me. No, Kwang said softly. We all were. The route never mattered. The driver did. I don't understand. Kwang tapped the side of his briefcase. This bus doesn't run on wheels. It runs on memory, pain, and the will to carry it. Min turned back toward the front. Then where do I take you? Kwang didn't answer immediately. Then, back to the bench. Min turned. But you said you've been stuck there, that it never ends. I didn't say it couldn't end. The words hit him like a wave. He pulled the lever in reverse. The bus did something it had never done before. It backed up. The world around them unraveled, mist swallowing the collapsing city, time folding in on itself. And then they were back, at the broken stop, where the weeds still pushed through concrete. The sunlight was gone. Midnight again. Min opened the door. Kwang didn't move, until he opened the briefcase. Inside was a photograph. A boy in a school uniform, smiling shy, holding a lunchbox. Kwang handed it to Min. Give this to him. If you ever see him, even if he's only in a dream. Min nodded, his voice thick. I will. Kwang stepped off the bus. and the world around him faded like dust in the wind. When Min closed the door, something else happened. The bus itself shuddered. Seats cracked slightly. The overhead lights blinked and changed color. A new sign appeared above the windshield. Route 4 closed, driver assigned. Min reached for the lever again, but this time it moved without his hand. The bus drove itself forward, and Min understood. The bus had always belonged to no one, and everyone. It ran not on schedule, but on soul, and it was always looking for those who remembered. That night, Min dreamed of the photo, the boy in it, and in the distance, a crowd of other passengers waiting, silent, watching, some with faces, some without, all with stories to finish. And Min was their driver now. Voices in the rearview mirror. The last bus never reaches its stop. True Ghost Stories series. The mirror didn't lie, but it never showed the truth either. Min sat alone in the driver's seat, staring into the rearview mirror that had never reflected the living. Its surface rippled faintly like black water trapped behind glass. Each night he checked it. Each night he saw something new. Sometimes it was faces, sometimes smoke, sometimes nothing. But tonight, there were voices, not out loud, not even in his ears. They came from the mirror directly into the space behind his eyes. A hum that built into a murmur like a crowd at the edge of a riot. Min gripped the lever. The bus hadn't stopped in hours, and it hadn't picked up anyone new. That was the first sign. Something was coming. The road outside had vanished completely. No buildings, no sky, only a tunnel of darkness, as though the universe had turned inside out. Min tried pulling the lever. Nothing changed. The bus didn't slow, didn't turn, just moved forward. The mirror began to glow, dimly but enough. Behind him, empty rows of seats began to flicker, like memories of people sitting there were trying to take shape. But nothing solidified. Then the voices grew louder. He couldn't make out words, but they were arguing, whispering, pleading. It was like dozens of conversations layered on top of one another, overlapping, tangled. He turned to look back physically. Nothing there. Just the seats. Still. Silent. But when he turned back to the mirror, one face remained. A boy, maybe 15, shaved head, school uniform, blood on his collar. His mouth moved silently. Then the mirror cracked. A fine line across the top corner. The sound wasn't loud, but it felt final. Min's pulse quickened. He slammed the lever down. The bus screamed to a halt. Not physically, spiritually. The kind of stop that tugged at his soul. Outside, a new world emerged. But it wasn't a memory. It was a graveyard. The mist parted to reveal cracked tombstones under a colorless sky. No birds, no trees, just rows upon rows of graves. Some fresh, some ancient, all forgotten. The bus door opened on its own, and someone stepped in. Min recognized him instantly. The boy from the mirror. He stepped lightly, cautiously. His shoes made no sound against the floor. He sat in the very back row, far left, and looked straight ahead. Min didn't speak at first. He knew somehow this soul was not like the others. Not just lost, but bound. He turned in his seat. "What's your name?" The boy didn't answer. Min tried again. "Why are you here?" Still nothing. Only when Min looked through the mirror again did the boy's reflection appear. And this time he was screaming, mouth wide, eyes wild, blood running from his nose. But in the physical space behind him, the boy sat completely still. No motion, no voice. Min turned back, cold sweat on his neck. The voices returned. Stronger. And this time they had words. "You left me. You didn't come back. You ran. You ran." Min's breath caught. The bus grew colder. He clenched his fists. "I don't know what you mean." But the mirror pulsed. Images flashed. A classroom door. Running footsteps. A group of students cornering a boy. Laughter turning to screams. A closet door slamming shut. And then silence. Min staggered back. He remembered. Barely. But it was real. Back in high school, there had been a rumor about a student who went missing after school hours. Bullied. Locked in a storage room during the hottest part of the year. By the time anyone found him, too late. Min hadn't bullied him, but he hadn't stopped it either. He had walked away. And now, the boy was here, on his bus. I didn't know, Min whispered. But the voices screamed louder. You saw, you turned your back, you walked away, you forgot. Min stood, turned to the boy. I was 16. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. No reply. Only silence. And then, the boy looked up. Finally. His eyes weren't accusing. They were tired. He opened his mouth, and this time his voice came through. I waited. Min sat down across from him. I'm sorry. The boy stared. You're driving now, he said. Min nodded. It's not a job, the boy whispered. It's a sentence. Min felt that in his bones. I know. The boy looked out the window. The cemetery outside had shifted. Now it showed the schoolyard. The closet door, covered in chains. He stood. I have to go. Min stood with him. Do you know where it leads? No, the boy said, but I can't stay here. Not again. The door opened, and the boy walked off the bus into the memory into whatever waited. The bus was empty again, but the mirror hadn't gone quiet. If anything, the voices were louder now. Min turned to face it, and this time the mirror didn't reflect the bus. It reflected him, not as he was, but as he could have been. Older, colder, alone. His mouth moved in the mirror, but not in the seat. You can't save them all. Min blinked. The mirror version of himself smiled. You'll try, and try, and try, until there's nothing left of you but wheels and ash. I don't want to forget them, Min said quietly. The mirror version raised an eyebrow. Then don't. But know this, each soul that walks these aisles leaves a piece behind. The mirror cracked again, this time deeper. Min stepped back. The mirror dimmed, and the voices vanished. The bus began to move once more, though Min hadn't touched the lever. It was driving itself. The route, it seemed, had memory too, and it was taking him somewhere he hadn't chosen. Through the dark, past the dead, and into the truth. He closed his eyes for a moment. Behind his lids, faces floated. Very Huang, the boy from the school. Others, all silent now, but all watching. All carried for a moment by him, and he understood. The bus didn't just ferry souls. It listened. It remembered. And now it remembered him too. The rearview mirror was quiet, just a blank cracked surface. But Min knew the voices would return. They always did. They were part of the road now. Part of him. Why the streetlights go out when it passes. The last bus never reaches its stop. True Ghost Story series. It started with the lights. A flicker, then a blink, then darkness. Min had come to recognize the signs. Every time the bus neared the edge of the known world, whenever it crossed from memory into something older, something more primal, the light gave up first. Street lamps that had survived decades of weather, neon signs glowing defiantly in the dark. Even overhead lights on highways, they all died when the bus passed by. As if reality itself couldn't bear to witness where the bus was headed. Tonight it was worse. Min sat behind the wheel, hands resting gently on the cracked lever. The bus rolled slowly through a suburban District 1 that still looked tethered to the real world. Houses, yards, lampposts. But as the bus crept forward, each light it passed blinked out. One by one, Min looked in the mirror. No passengers yet, but the rear view had begun humming again. That soft pulse of electricity that wasn't mechanical but spiritual. Like the sound of a soul readying to step through the veil. The first sign that something was wrong came when the bus stopped in front of a normal house. Red roof, faded paint, the number 147 carved into the gate. The door opened on its own. But no one stood outside. Min waited. Nothing moved. He was about to pull the lever and continue when he heard it. A tap. From inside the bus. He turned. Every seat was empty, except the second to last, where a young woman now sat. He hadn't seen her board. The door had never opened behind her. She simply appeared. Her face was obscured by her long hair, which hung damp over her shoulders. She wore a nurse's uniform. Min stood. Walked slowly toward her. "Ma'am," he asked softly. She didn't respond. Her body was turned slightly toward the window, her head tilted down. Her fingers were pressed to the glass. Tap, 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 exactly 3 times. Then silence. Min stopped in the aisle beside her. "Are you waiting for something?" Her head twitched slightly. Not turned, twitched, like something broken trying to move naturally. Then slowly her voice drifted up. "I used to take this route home, the last one from the hospital." Min's heart panged. "Are you from here?" She nodded faintly. "Benningia district. I was on night shift. Always ended at 1:45. The last bus came at 2:00. Min looked back out the window. The house was still there, still quiet. "Did something happen?" he asked gently. A pause. Then she whispered, "It never stopped." He sat down across from her. "What do you mean?" "The night I died, I was late, just a few minutes. I waved at the bus, screamed. It passed by. The driver looked at me, but it didn't stop." Min swallowed hard. "I ran after it," she continued. "I tripped crossing the road. There was another car. Silence. I never made it to the other side." Min's voice was soft. "That's why the lights go out." She didn't answer, but he knew. Each place the bus passed, each light that died marked someone who had almost made it. Almost crossed, almost returned. She looked up. For the first time, Min saw her face. Not mutilated, not monstrous, just tired, forgotten. "Do you remember your name?" he asked. She blinked. "Lynn." "I'm Min, Mr. A small smile tugged at her lips. "You don't have to drive forever." Min blinked. "What?" She pointed toward the window. The light at the end of the street, a tall lamppost standing alone, was still on. "It hasn't gone out yet." "Then there's still time." She nodded, but only for one of us. The next moment unfolded in slow motion. Min heard the bus shift, the sound of the lever moving, but he hadn't touched it. Outside, the lamppost at the end of the street sparked, then flickered, still not out. The road ahead glowed faintly with the promise of light. Lynn stood, walked slowly toward the front of the bus. Her steps were soundless. At the door, she paused. "I never blamed the driver. I just needed someone to stop." Min stepped beside her. "I'm stopping now." She turned, looked at him. "Why do you do it, Min? Why keep driving?" He looked at his hands. "I think I was supposed to die in that crash, but I didn't. And something else got left behind." She nodded once, then turned, stepped through the open door, onto the road, toward the light. As she walked, the lamppost brightened. No flicker, no blink. It simply held steady. And when she disappeared into it completely, the light finally dimmed. Not failed, rested. Min returned to his seat. The street outside darkened again, but the air felt warmer, cleaner. The rearview mirror shimmered. Only his own reflection looked back. But there was something different, a faint shimmer behind him. Not ghosts, not voices, just an acknowledgement. The souls remembered. Suddenly the bus jerked. A turn Min hadn't commanded. It veered off the road, off any road, and into a tunnel made of collapsed sky and twisted streetlights floating like broken halos. The inside lights dimmed. The bus creaked. This wasn't a stop. This was a warning, and it came too late. Halfway through the tunnel, the mirror shattered. Not a crack. Shattered. Glass flew into the aisle, but nothing hit Min. In the reflection before it died, he saw something behind him. A shadow, long stretched, not human. It didn't belong to any soul he'd carried. It didn't even have eyes. Just a mouth, open, silent, watching. Then it was gone. The tunnel ended in pure black. The bus stopped. No door opened, no sound, just stillness. Min stepped out of his seat, looked back down the empty aisle. Glass on the floor, dust in the air, but no figure. He exhaled. Something had slipped through. Something that didn't belong to any memory, life, or death. Something that followed the light going out. He returned to his seat. No mirror, just darkness. But he still pulled the lever, still drove. Because as long as someone waited at the end of the road, he had to keep going. He had to stop. Even when others didn't. Even when the streetlights gave up. Because maybe the reason the lights went out wasn't because of death. Maybe they went out to hide something worse. And Min, était normal, Henri de Min changed. He was going to find it. Passengers who don't cast. Shadows, the last bus never reaches its stop. True Ghost Stories series. Min had learned to measure danger in silence. Not the peaceful kind that blanketed a quiet street or lulled people to sleep on rainy nights, but the kind that crept in like a second skin, pressing against the windows, waiting just outside the light. The bus had driven through many realms, memories, regrets, fragments of lost lives. But nothing unsettled him like what waited tonight. Not because it screamed, but because it didn't. The first sign was the cold. It came without wind, no shift in the environment. One moment Min's breath was still, the next it curled visibly in the air like fog trapped inside the bus. His fingers stiffened on the lever, the windows frosted at the edges. He glanced into the rearview mirror, now cracked into a spiderweb of memories. He hadn't dared remove it, fearing what might be behind it if it ever fully shattered. No passengers. But when he turned around, someone was sitting in the very last row. A figure. Still motionless. Min hadn't heard the door open, hadn't seen anyone step on. They just appeared. He rose slowly, walking down the aisle. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the air around the figure was thickening. The lights above buzzed and dimmed as he approached. The person, if it was a person, was dressed in a neat black coat. No face visible, no movement. Head slightly lowered, pale hands folded in their lap. "Excuse me," Min said gently. No answer. He moved closer, then stopped cold. The lights from above passed directly over the figure, but there was no shadow. None. Min's heart beat faster. The bus had carried ghosts before, spirits stuck in between, even echoes of guilt that didn't know they were dead. But even they cast shadows. Even the dead had substance in their own way. This one didn't. He stepped back, watching closely. The figure didn't blink, didn't react. But then, just as Min turned away, the figure shifted. A soft rustle of fabric. Min froze. He turned quickly, but now the seat was empty. Gone. Vanished. He rushed to the back. Looked under the seats. Nothing. No footprints. No signs of presence. The only evidence that someone had ever been there was a small, flat card lying on the floor. Min bent to pick it up. It wasn't a bus ticket. It was black. Matte black. No words, no ink. But when he turned it slightly, an impression appeared in the light. Admit 1, no return. The bus groaned. Not mechanically, but with a sound like old wood and forgotten promises. Min hurried back to the front. The fog outside had thickened, but something else now moved within it. Figures. Dozens. Maybe more. All walking toward the road. The bus was no longer alone. Shapes flickered in and out of sight, passengers with no definition, just outlines. Min's breath caught in his throat. One by one they stepped into view. They looked human. Men in suits, women in dresses, children in school uniforms. But the moment they passed under the dying street lamps, Min saw it. None of them cast shadows. The doors opened on their own, and the first of the figures stepped inside. No sound, no footsteps, just presence. Min's instincts screamed at him to stop them, but he couldn't move. One by one, they filled the bus, each taking a seat silently, row after row, until the bus was nearly full, and not a single one had a shadow. Min turned toward the door controls. slapped the lever. "Stop," he said aloud. "This isn't your bus." No reaction. He tried again. "I said stop, this isn't your route." Then finally one figure turned to him. A woman in a long gray coat, hair braided neatly, her face pale and smooth. Too smooth. No eyes, no mouth. Just a suggestion of features. She tilted her head and smiled without lips. A stretch of skin that bent in the wrong way. Then she turned back to face forward. Min shuddered. He reached for the emergency brake, pulled it hard. The bus screamed but didn't stop. It kept moving, as if the road beneath them had become alive. He ran to the rear of the bus looking for the card again, but it was gone. And when he looked into the cracked rearview mirror, the bus was empty. Completely. No passengers, no seats, just space. And a single word etched into the mirror's surface. "Witness?" Min stumbled back. "Who are you?" he whispered. A whisper answered from nowhere and everywhere. "We are the ones no one saw. No cameras, no photos, no tombstones, no names, no weight, no shadows." Min gripped the metal pole beside him to steady himself. "You're the forgotten." A pause. Then Nachos Orn de Risen Rancho. Not forgotten, unseen. The bus began to accelerate. The fog whipped past the windows like smoke in reverse. Buildings, trees, people, everything blurred until only gray remained. Min looked toward the door. Still open. Still inviting. He could jump. End the ride. Let it crash. But he didn't. Instead, he stood tall. Faced the passengers. "Then let me see you." No response. "Show me who you were." A flicker. A shimmer in the aisle. And then faces. Hundreds of them. Each passenger now had a face. Some twisted in pain. Others frozen in fear. But all human. And all looking at him. Some nodded. Others wept silently. Min stepped forward. "I'll carry you. I don't know where this road leads, but I will take you as far as I can." The bus slowed, ever so slightly, as if acknowledging his vow. Then came the sound. A soft hum like wind passing through ancient stones. It vibrated through the metal frame through Min's bones. One final figure stood up from the last row. Walked slowly toward the front. A tall man dressed in black, face-blank features undefined. No shadow. He held something in his hand. Another black card. He placed it in Min's pocket. No words spoken. Just a nod. Then he turned and walked through the front of the bus. Not out the door. Through the metal. And was gone. Min pulled the card from his pocket. This time words were clear. "Admit all, return pending." And under it, driver confirmed. The mirror stopped flickering. The cold eased. And the passengers faded. Seat by seat. Vanishing not with fear but with peace. Until the bus was empty once more. Only Min remained. Driving. And this time the lights stayed on. Because even those without shadows deserve to be seen. And as long as someone remembered, as long as someone witnessed, they could finally move on. He tried to get off, but couldn't. The last bus never reaches its stop. True Ghost Stories series. The rule had always been simple. Once you got on, you waited for your stop. But some passengers didn't have one. Some never understood they were riding toward the end. And some tried to get off, but couldn't. Min knew this night would be different. The sky above was darker than usual, inky, starless, as if the heavens themselves had shut their eyes. The bus rolled slowly through an old part of the city, one that barely existed on any map anymore. There were roads here, sure, but they hadn't seen life in decades. Grass burst through the cracks in the concrete. Faded signs pointed nowhere. And yet, a man was waiting at the next stop. He stood completely still beneath a flickering light post, dressed in a button-up shirt loosely tucked into business slacks. His bag slumped at his feet. He looked like he'd just left the office. Tired, a little dazed. Human. Very human. Min felt it instantly. This one didn't know. The door hissed open. The man stepped inside without hesitation, offering a brief nod to Min before moving toward the middle of the bus. He chose a seat by the window, placed his bag on the floor, and sighed. Min kept watching him in the rearview mirror. No flicker, no static, no disappearance. Just a man, breathing, alive. It wasn't unheard of. Sometimes people stepped into the wrong place at the wrong time. They missed the last train, took a wrong turn, walked past a door they should have ignored, and somehow they boarded the last bus. The problem was they couldn't leave until the bus allowed it, and the bus, it didn't always allow it. 15 minutes passed. The man looked up confused. Min watched as he leaned toward the window, peering out into the blur of mist and broken city shapes. Then he stood, walked to the front. "Hey," he said, trying to smile. "I think I got on the wrong bus." Min didn't answer right away. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Dewey, Nguyen Dewey. I was just trying to get back to District 10, my girlfriend's place." Min nodded. "You were late getting off work." Dewey laughed nervously. "Always am. Boss is a slave driver." He looked outside again, then frowned. "Where are we?" Min hesitated. "Then you're on the night route. It's different." Dewey narrowed his eyes. "What kind of different?" Min leaned back slightly. "The kind where time doesn't move the same, where roads loop, where people don't always know they've already arrived." Dewey's smile faded. He stepped back. "Look, man, I'm tired. I just want to get off. I'll walk, I don't care." Min gently pulled the lever. The bus didn't stop. Dewey grabbed the nearest handle. "I said I want to get off." Min turned to face him fully. "You can't. Not yet." Dewey's face twisted in confusion. "What the hell are you talking about?" Min gestured toward the back. "Go sit. Wait, trust me." "I don't even remember getting on this thing," Dewey muttered, retreating a few steps. "I was just walking out of the office. Then I was here." He didn't sit. He stood by the middle door, hand hovering near the emergency lever. The air changed. Min felt it instantly. The bus had noticed. And it didn't like it. The lights above began to hum. The windows shimmered just slightly like water under glass. Dewey pulled the door lever. Nothing happened. He yanked it again. Still nothing. He slammed his palm against it, panicking now. "I want to get off." Min stood. "Don't fight it. You'll make it worse." Dewey turned to him, breath shaking. "Worse? What is this place?" Min walked toward him slowly. "A crossing? For people who never finish the ride?" "I'm not dead." Min stopped. "No," he said quietly, "but you were close." Dewey's face drained of color. He backed against the door. "What do you mean?" Min nodded slowly. "You were hit by something. I don't know what. Maybe a car. Maybe a fall. Maybe your own choice." Dewey grabbed his head. "No, I was just leaving the office. I remember the elevator, the lobby, my phone buzzing. Then he froze, eyes wide. I saw lights." Min didn't speak. Dewey's breathing grew rapid. "I heard someone scream." The bus slowed. Outside, the mist parted just for a moment, and in that instant Dewey saw it. His own body, lying on the pavement, face pale. People crowded around, paramedics working, and in the distance, a girl, crying. Dewey dropped to his knees. No, that's not real." Min knelt beside him. "It is, but it's not the end." Dewey looked at him desperate. "Then let me go back." Min shook his head. "It's not my call." Whose is it?" Min stood, walked back to the front. "The bus chooses," he said. "Then stop it, turn it around." "I don't control where it goes." "You're driving." "I'm guiding," Min said softly, "not deciding." Dewey stood, fists clenched. He looked at the window again. His body was gone. The crowd too. Just fog now. The road disappearing. He ran to the front, grabbed Min by the shirt. "I have someone waiting for me." Min nodded. "I know? Then I don't belong here. You're in between. The bus doesn't take you unless part of you already let go." Dewey collapsed into the nearest seat, shaking. Silence filled the bus again. Only the rumble of wheels on roads that didn't exist. After what felt like hours, Dewey spoke. "Do you remember them?" Min blinked. "Who?" The ones who couldn't leave. Min sat back in his seat, all of them. Doi looked down. I didn't mean to die. I don't think anyone really does. I just didn't think it would matter. One bad night, one slip. Min's voice was low. It always matters, even when we're too numb to believe it. The lights flickered again. A new road appeared outside. Brighter, warmer, and far ahead, a figure stood. A girl, waving. Dewey's breath hitched. He rushed to the window. That's her. That's my girl. Min nodded. She's calling you back. But how I thought I couldn't leave. Min looked at the lever, pulled it slowly. The bus began to stop. Sometimes love calls louder than death. Dai looked at him, eyes wide. Is this real? I don't know, Min said, but it's yours. The door opened. Dai stood frozen, then turned. What happens if I go? You wake up, Min said. And if I stay, Min looked out into the fog. You become the one who never got off. Doi stepped to the door, paused, turned. Will I remember this? Min smiled faintly. Maybe not, but part of you always will. Dewey held Min's gaze for one last moment, then stepped off, toward the girl, toward life, and the light swallowed him whole. The bus was empty again, but not heavy, not haunted, just waiting. Min sat back, took a breath, pulled the lever. The wheels turned, and the road stretched on, because not every soul was lost. Some just needed someone to stop for them. Only the dead know this stop. The last bus never reaches its stop. True Ghost Stories series. There are places that no GPS can find, no street signs, no maps, no memory. But the dead, they remember. Because some stops were never built for the living. Min had long stopped looking at the clock. Time didn't work the same way out here. On some nights, the ride felt endless. On others, the bus seemed to loop, passing the same bend 3 times in the space of a breath. But tonight was different. The road wasn't looping or endless. It was leading somewhere, and Min could feel it in his bones. The air had changed. It wasn't cold like the night Vi had vanished, or hot like when the schoolboy had stepped aboard. No, this was still, suspended, as though the entire world had taken a breath and refused to let it out. The fog outside thinned, revealing a small structure in the distance. A bus stop. Old, rotting, forgotten, and yet, still waiting. The bus slowed on its own. Min didn't touch the lever. He just stared, watching the outline of the stop grow clearer. It sat beneath a crooked tree with no leaves, its bark blackened like it had been struck by lightning. A rusted bench leaned against a shattered glass frame. There was no sign, no number, no route name. But Min knew this wasn't the first time he'd passed this place. He just hadn't been meant to see it before. Tonight, it had made itself known. The doors opened with a groan, and one passenger stepped in. She looked around 60, hair tied in a low bun, a long brown coat clutched tightly around her thin frame. Her eyes were cloudy, not with blindness, but with something deeper, as though she were looking through the bus, not at it. She climbed the steps slowly, didn't glance at Min, sat in the front row, hands resting in her lap. Min cleared his throat gently. Evening, ma'am. No answer. He tried again. Do you know this stop? This time she turned, and her voice when it came was clear and steady. No one knows it unless they've died before. Min's hands tightened on the wheel. What does that mean? She stared ahead. It's not a stop on any route. Not for buses, not for people. But the dead come here when they're not ready to go forward. Or when they left something behind. Min sat back slowly. And which are you, or you? Her lips curled faintly. Maybe both. The bus pulled away. Not by Min's will, but as though it understood the task. Outside, the world darkened again. The tree vanished into mist. The road became gravel, then dirt, then something less solid. Min glanced into the mirror. She was still there, But her reflection was different. Younger, much younger. 20 maybe, wearing a hospital gown, holding something small, a wrapped bundle. Min turned around. The woman hadn't moved, but tears now rolled silently down her cheeks. "What did you leave behind?" Min asked softly. She didn't look at him. "My daughter," she whispered. "I died giving birth." A chill ran through Min. "I was 19, alone. The nurses said the baby would live, but I never saw her, never held her, never even knew her name." Min sat quietly, let the silence breathe. "I've tried to leave," she said. "Many times. Every time I board a bus, I hope it's the last one, that it'll take me somewhere. But they all pass that stop." "Why now?" Min asked. She looked at him, and for the first time her eyes met his. "Because you stopped." The bus curved suddenly. The fog outside split, and ahead, bathed in golden light, stood a hospital. Old, peeling paint, windows boarded, but familiar. Min recognized it from a photo once taped to the dashboard when he first got the job. An abandoned wing of City Medical closed after a fire in the maternity ward over 20 years ago. The woman stood. Her hands trembled. "That's it," she said. Min opened the door, but she didn't move. "Do you want to go?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I'm afraid," she said. "Of what?" "That she won't remember me." Min stepped beside her. "She doesn't have to. Some things go deeper than memory." The woman closed her eyes, stepped down, walked across the light-drenched ground, and as she touched the hospital doors, she vanished. Not into mist, not into shadow, but into peace. The road reappeared. The bus moved again. Min sat in silence until something caught his eye. A piece of folded paper resting in the woman's seat. He picked it up, unfolded it. A name, and Nian. Min traced the letters slowly. A note beneath. "Tell her I waited." The bus began to speed up. The trees outside blurred. The road straightened, and ahead another figure waited at a stop Min had never seen before. This time a young man, teenage, slouched posture, holding a skateboard. He looked up as the bus stopped. Eyes tired, face bruised. He climbed aboard, dropped into a seat near the back. Didn't speak, didn't look around, just stared out the window. Min didn't need to ask. This was his stop too. One of the kind only the dead remember. He pulled the lever gently. The bus kept rolling. For a while there was nothing but road. Then another passenger. Then another. A girl with burn scars. A man missing a shoe. A boy with a crumpled photo in his hand. All silent. All watching. All from stops that had no names. And every time, and mom, there is something to do. Min stopped. And every time, they got on. Some whispered thanks. Some just nodded. One of them, a child, gave Min a drawing before disappearing. It showed a bus, glowing, carrying stars. The fog thickened again. The road began to loop. And Min knew what that meant. The end of this ride. For now, he sat back, looked into the cracked mirror. His face stared back. But there was something new behind his eyes. Not weariness, not fear, but knowing. He had seen stops no one remembered, spoken to people history had buried, witnessed love, pain, regret, and acceptance. And now, he would drive again, because as long as the dead waited, someone had to stop. You can ride it once. If you dare, the last bus never reaches its stop. True Ghost Stories series. There's a rumor. One whispered around hospital corridors, spoken in passing by late-night security guards, heard in alleyways between drags of cigarettes. A story that starts with a question. Have you ever seen the 2 a.m. bus? No route number, no schedule. It doesn't appear on any app. But if you're in the wrong place, or maybe the right one, it will stop for you, but only once. It was just after 1:52 a.m. when Tung found himself alone outside the outskirts of the city. His phone had died 2 hours ago. No taxis passed this road anymore. Even the streetlights seemed to fade the farther he walked. He didn't remember why he'd come here, just that something had drawn him. A heaviness, like gravity but emotional, like a place meant for endings. Then, headlights. Dim, soft, yellow like old candlelight through stained glass. He turned, and there it was, a bus. Old, faded blue paint, cracked windshield, no number. It rolled to a stop with a mechanical sigh. The door creaked open, and the driver looked at him. Tung hesitated. He'd heard the story before, told like a joke between night shift workers, passed around like urban legend. If you see the 2 a.m. bus, you can ride it once. Just once. If you dare. No one knew what it meant. Some said it was a test. Others claimed it was a trick of the mind, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion or stress. But there it was. And it was waiting for him. He stepped on. The driver nodded. Not in greeting, more like recognition. Name, the driver asked. Tung, he replied, swallowing hard. The driver scribbled something into a worn notebook. You get one ride, no returns. You understand? Tung frowned. Where does it go? The driver looked forward, not where, when. That should have made him walk off immediately, but something kept him there. He nodded. The driver gestured. Take any seat, just not the one in the back right corner. Tung raised an eyebrow. Why? The driver's voice lowered. Because that one's always reserved. The bus doors shut with a hiss, and it moved. Tung walked down the aisle, glancing at the seats. They weren't empty. They just didn't seem occupied either. Faint figures shimmered in the corners of his vision. Outlines of people too faint to fully appear. Some whispered, others wept. He sat near the middle. His reflection stared back at him in the opposite window, but it didn't quite match. His real self breathed once. The reflection didn't. Time passed strangely. The bus didn't turn, didn't slow. It just rolled forward through space that didn't seem real. At some point, the lights flickered, and a figure appeared beside him. A young woman, eyes hollow, voice trembling. You shouldn't have gotten on. Tung stiffened. Why? They let you ride once, but if you don't get off, you ride forever. He turned toward her, but she was gone. In her place, only a pair of shoes remained. Old, children's size. The driver's voice crackled through the intercom. First stop coming. Outside, the fog thinned. A house appeared. Wooden, 2 stories, lights on upstairs. Tung peered out. Something about it felt familiar. Then he remembered. His grandfather's house. He hadn't seen it in over a decade. He hadn't thought about it in years, but it stood exactly as it did when he was 7. He turned to ask the driver if they'd gone off route, but the driver wasn't there. The seat behind the wheel was empty. The wheel turned on its own. The brake pressed itself. The door opened. A boy stood at the steps of the house, barefoot, grinning. Tung, you made it. His chest tightened. That was his cousin Koa, who had drowned the summer they both turned 9. Tung never forgave himself. He had dared Koa to swim farther, told him he'd be fine, watched him go under, and never saw him come back up. I waited, Koa said. You're not real, Tung whispered. Koa's smile faded, but I was. Then he turned and vanished. The house disappeared behind him like mist torn by wind. The bus lurched forward again, faster. Outside, memories blurred by his mother's tears, a hospital bed, his first heartbreak, his failed interview, the night he almost didn't come home. Then a stop. The driver was back. You can get off here, he said, if you want. Tung stood, walked toward the door. Outside his apartment building. Lights on, warmth leaking from the windows, the sound of music, his fiancée laughing. It felt real, but to Dakunim, he didn't move. He looked at the driver. Is it real? The driver shrugged. Maybe you only get one ride. What happens if I stay? The driver said nothing, but his eyes said everything. Tung stepped back. The doors closed. The apartment faded, and the bus plunged into shadow. The road below became translucent. Like glass suspended over a vast ocean of nothing, he could see shapes beneath it. Not creatures, moments, a wedding that never happened, a child that never took a first breath. A graduation ceremony where the seat marked in loving memory sat in the front row. Every choice, every loss, every future unlived. The bus slowed. The driver spoke again. "This is the final stop." Tung looked up. Ahead stood a gate, massive, covered in symbols, not religious, not ancient, just final. Beyond it only white, no horizon, no return. "You can step off now," the driver said. Tung didn't move. "Is this death?" The driver blinked slowly. "It's not death, but it's the choice to leave life." Tung turned. The other seats were full now, faces visible. People he didn't know, but recognized. The sad, the tired, the forgotten. Those who had also taken the ride. Some smiled at him, some just stared, but no one spoke. They were waiting. For him, he stepped toward the door. It opened. A gust of air brushed past him. It didn't feel cold. It didn't feel anything. "Why me?" he asked. The driver shrugged. "You were listening. Most people aren't. And if I say no, then the bus keeps going. Will it come again?" The driver smiled faintly. "Only once." Tung looked into the light. He felt everything. Regret, love, fear, hope. He stepped forward. Then Maruwanter Foreigner makes us itty stopped. "I want to go back," he said. "I want to live, even if it's hard." The light paused, then receded. The door closed. The seats emptied. The road returned. The bus rolled on. When Tung awoke the next morning, he was lying on a park bench, shoes wet with dew. The sun was rising, and in his pocket, a torn bus ticket. One side burned, the other side stamped. "Admit one used." Some say the bus never existed. That it's just a metaphor, a dream for the dying, a shadow between worlds. But Tung knows better. He wrote it. Just once, and he got off. So if you're ever walking past a lonely road at 2 a.m., and you hear a soft hum, see golden headlights in the fog, and a door slowly open just for you, think hard, because you can ride it once. If you dare,